Hey, this is Ciderhelm and welcome back to Turning Point. On occasion, I like to switch up the types of plays I cover, as well as how I cover them. For today's episode, I'm going to do something a little different by using tournament footage from the recent LCS playoffs, specifically the second match between Vulcan and Curse. I'll tell you right now, Vulcan is going to win this match, and no single team fight turns this game around. Instead, this match is really all about looking at two opposing strategies and how they play out over the course of a game. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the difference between a team built to win in the mid-game and a team built to win in the late game. Renekton is an amazingly powerful champion. He's the kind of champion who can survive by himself in a lane against two opponents, and occasionally he'll hit level 6 and pick up a double kill in the same lane. While Renekton can scale decently through the game, he has a power spike right as he gains his ultimate, which temporarily grants him a huge boost of health and AoE magic damage. The health is a flat amount that doesn't scale with any stats, and Renekton players don't tend to build to increase the magic damage, which means the value of his ultimate tends to fall off as enemies gain more damage and more survivability themselves. Because of this, it's often critical for Renekton players to use this early damage to pull ahead, as it's necessary just to keep in step with other players in the late game. And in this matchup, Renekton has accomplished this phenomenally well so far. The Renekton pick, as well as his performance so far, has given Curse an opportunity to finish this game out before the match goes too long, and they make every effort to capitalize on this. They finish out a 21-minute Baron, immediately following this with a Dragon takedown. Both are completely uncontested by Vulcan, who neither had the vision nor the capability to take Curse out head-on. From here, they're able to bully Vulcan out at mid lane, leading to an easy tower takedown. The second tower at bot lane is next, and this is followed up with a team fight that goes in Curse's favor, as Renekton and Jarvan form an unstoppable front line. With Kog'Maw down, they push the third tower. Through heavy harassment from Vulcan, they brute force the inhibitor, effectively ignoring Vulcan before backing off. And finally, after all of this, they take down the second tower at top lane, leaving every lane fully pushed up to their base. Let's look at where things are 28 minutes into this match. Curse has a 7-1 tower advantage, a 16-10 kill advantage, and a nearly 9,000 gold lead. Their minions are near Vulcan's Nexus towers. We don't really need to get into the specifics of any team fight from here on out, though I will say it's worth watching Ryze in these fights, as he lands some absolutely stellar immobilizes, including some that clearly save Kog'Maw's life and turn a couple of the first few fights. This game is turning around right as the late game hits. Despite an incredible difference in gold and items, Vulcan will start winning each of these team fights. What we're looking at is the difference between a mid-game strategy and a late-game strategy. With Renekton, Curse has a ton of power invested in a champion who's strongest in the early and mid-game, and this isn't actually a bad thing. Even though Vulcan has generally been doing great against Curse in other lanes, the power allowed for huge item gains for everyone thanks to all of the objective takedowns. But Curse is only running one extremely strong late-game champion, Tristana, and while their other champions can do fine in the late game, Vulcan definitely has a champion advantage. Kog'Maw is easily comparable to Tristana in late game damage despite lagging a little behind Tristana in items, and only suffers as a champion due to his mobility. While Ryze functions fine in the early game, he is a champion who tends to invest heavily in early survivability items, but becomes a massive threat later in the game. And while he has a shorter effective range than Orianna, he has the advantage of being able to go toe-to-toe with Renekton, Jarvan, and Thresh with no problem, which allows him to protect Kog'Maw in these engagements. And Nasus, like Renekton, is extremely survivable in the early game. However, by late game he provides very strong damage through his Siphoning Strike, and more importantly, he can dramatically reduce Tristana's attack speed through Wither. At one point, Nasus manages to completely zone out Tristana while helping take out Orianna and blocking Thresh. Because Vulcan has managed to survive, to simply outlast Curse's early and mid-game strengths, they eventually wound up winning the game. This is a pretty stunning turnaround. And to be clear, this was not inevitable. Early domination strategies such as the one Curse was running are very effective. They can be very demoralizing and very hard to deal with unless you understand the strengths of late-game champions and trust you may make it to that point. On this show, we primarily look at high-end solo queue games. When this kind of imbalance shows up in a solo queue game, it doesn't matter whether the players are bronze or challenger, a lot of the players will throw in the towel. Vulcan was down 7-1 in terms of towers, and they saw Curse pick up Baron and Dragon uncontested. This kind of game exists to remind us that, with player skill and smart picks, turnarounds can happen. Thanks for watching this episode of Turning Point. Please let me know in the comments below whether you enjoy this format. I won't be doing it for every episode, but I do want to know if you want to see it again.